When you picture mountain climbers scaling Mount Everest, what probably comes to mind are teams of climbers with Sherpa guides leading them to the summit, equipped with oxygen masks, supplies, and tents. And in most cases, you'd be right, as 97% of climbers use oxygen to ascend to Everest's summit at 8,850 meters above sea level. The thin air at high altitudes makes most people breathless at 3,500 meters, and the vast majority of climbers use oxygen past 7,000 meters. A typical climbing group will have 8 to 15 people in it, with an almost equal number of guides, and they'll spend weeks to get to the top after reaching base camp. But ultra-distance and mountain runner Kilian Jornet Bergata ascended the mountain in May 2017 alone, without an oxygen mask or fixed ropes for climbing. Oh, and he did it in 26 hours, with food poisoning. And then, 5 days later, he did it again, this time in only 17 hours. Born in 1987, Kilian has been training for Everest his whole life. And that really does mean his whole life, as he grew up 2,000 meters above sea level in the Pyrenees in the ski resort of Les de Cerdanya in Catalonia, northeastern Spain. While other children his age were learning to walk, Kilian was on skis. At 1.5 years old, he did a 5-hour hike with his mother, entirely under his own steam. He left his peers even further behind when he climbed his first mountain. In the 1950s, Central American commercial banana growers were facing the death of their most lucrative product, the Gros Michel banana, known as Big Mike. And now it's happening again to Big Mike's successor, the Cavendish. With its easily transported, thick-skinned, and sweet-tasting fruit, the Gros Michel banana plant dominated the plantations of Central America. United Fruit, the main grower and exporter in South America at the time, mass-produced its bananas in the most efficient way possible. It cloned shoots from the stems of plants instead of growing plants from seeds, and cultivated them in densely packed fields. Unfortunately, these conditions are also perfect for the spread of the fungus Fusarium oxysporum F. cubense, which attacks the plant's roots and prevents it from transporting water to the stem and leaves. The TR1 strain of the fungus was resistant to crop sprays and traveled around on boots or the tires of trucks, slowly infecting plantations across the region. In an attempt to escape the fungus, farmers abandoned infected fields, flooded them, and then replanted crops somewhere else, often cutting down rainforest to do so. Their efforts failed. So instead, they searched for a variety of banana that the fungus didn't affect. They found the Cavendish, as it was called, in the greenhouse of a British duke. It wasn't as well suited to shipping as the Gros Michel, but its bananas tasted good enough to keep consumers happy. Most importantly, Much of today's business is conducted across international borders, and while the majority of the global business community might share the use of English as a common language, the nuances and expectations of business communication might differ greatly from culture to culture. A lack of understanding of the cultural norms and practices of our business acquaintances can result in unfair judgments, misunderstandings, and breakdowns in communication. Here are three basic areas of differences in the business etiquette around the world that could help stand you in good stead when you next find yourself working with someone from a different culture. Addressing someone. When discussing this topic in a training course, a German trainee and a British trainee got into a hot debate about whether it was appropriate for someone with a doctorate to use the corresponding title on their business card. The British trainee maintained that anyone who wasn't a medical doctor expecting to be addressed as doctor was disgustingly pompous and full of themselves. The German trainee, however, argued that the hard work and years of education put into earning that PhD should give them full rights to expect to be addressed as doctor. This stark difference in opinion over something that could be conceived as minor and thus easily overlooked goes to show that we often attach meaning to even the most mundane practices. When things that we are used to are done differently, it could spark the strongest reactions in us. While many continental Europeans and Latin Americans prefer to be addressed with a title, in Factfulness, Professor Hans Rosling, along with two collaborators, asks simple questions about the world. Questions like, how many girls finish school? And what percentage of the world's population is poor? It turns out the majority of us get the answers to these questions completely wrong. Why does this happen? Factfulness sets out to explain why, showing that there are several instincts humans have that distort our perspective. For example, most people divide the world into us and them. In addition, we often believe that things are getting worse, and we are consuming large amounts of media that use a sales model based on making us afraid. But according to the authors, the world isn't as bad as we think. Yes, there are real concerns, but we should adopt a mindset of factfulness, only carrying opinions that are supported by strong facts. This book is not concerned with the underlying reasons for poverty or progress, or what should be done about these issues. It focuses on our instinctive biases, offering practical advice to help us see the good as well as the bad in the world. Enlightenment. Now, Steven Pinker. Are things getting worse every day? Is progress an impossible goal? In Enlightenment. Now, Steven Pinker looks at the big picture of human progress and finds good news. We are living longer, healthier, freer, and happier Your manager stops you and says she needs to have a word about your performance in the recent project. You worry about it all weekend, wondering what you might have done wrong. When you step into her office on Monday morning, she begins by praising you for the good work you've done on the project, and you wonder if this is the obligatory praise that starts off the typical feedback sandwich. You know how the feedback sandwich goes. Say something nice, say what you really want to say something nice again. In an attempt to inject some positivity into their feedback, many managers rely on sandwiching negative feedback between two positive comments. However, when feedback becomes such a routine, employees can start to perceive positive feedback as simply a form of sugarcoating the negatives, thus diminishing its value. Instead, positive feedback should not simply be seen as something to cushion the negative, but should be delivered so as to reinforce and encourage good performance. Below are 3 tips to help you make positive feedback count. 1. Don't always follow positive feedback with negative feedback. When positive and negative feedback always appear to go hand in hand, the positives can become devalued and ignored. Ensure there are times when positive feedback is given for its own sake and resist the temptation to offer constructive criticism. 2. Cultivate a growth mindset. Psychologist and growth mindset proponent Carol Dweck spoke of the plasticity of the brain and our ability to develop